Yo, what up, folks? This is Rodney Farrell, the CEO of Farrell Development Group, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by E.I.T.H.R. Let's get it.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with E.I.T.H.R.
UBZs best recognize when a real one speaks, spitting nothing but facts and gospel. You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R with D-Cal. For Sheezy, he be the truth.
And good morning, everybody. This is your boy G-Cal hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast. And I just want to go ahead and welcome everybody to my world this morning. Hope everybody had an awesome weekend. The weather's definitely warming up, so I think it's going to be a pretty nice summer. I'm not too sure what everyone else thinks, but I think it's going to be hot this year. So welcome to my office. I just want to let you guys know.
In the office, baby.
Now we're about to go ahead and get to work. So, first things first, as Notorious Big would say. I want to thank you to my sponsors, Candace Romero for my.doterra.com/Romero and Farrell Development Group. Thank you very much for the support on the podcast. This is episode number 7. If you guys can go ahead and follow us on the social media of Twitter and Instagram. The handle is at the E.I.T.H.R, TheEITHR. And on YouTube, just search for the company page, which is the GNS Inc. And then you'll be able to see these recordings uploaded on the page as well. Man, what a crazy weekend, right? The podcast is the elephant in the room. That's the acronym that the E.I.T.H.R stands for, the elephant in the room. So we're definitely about to address the elephant in the room, which is the domestic terrorist shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York this past weekend. Listen, I don't know. I honestly don't know what else to say about what needs to happen in this country. I think a lot of us believe change needs to happen. We just don't agree with how change needs to happen. But definitely something's coming. And I will say this. They're going to use whatever antics happens as a reason to change things that's going to benefit them and spark us to do some stupid shit. So even if we don't want our guns taken, our guns regulated, they're going to take instances like what happened in Buffalo, New York, what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and use those as justifications of why things are going to happen to our rights to bear arms. I don't think they're going to take it away completely, but I think they are going to try to find a way to minimize it. I myself don't believe that guns should be regulated or taken away. I don't believe anyone should not have the right to own a sidearm, but I do believe that education needs to be done. I do believe. What the fuck are you doing with an assault rifle in city limits? Let's start there. Why do you need an assault rifle? And I know some of my buddies out there hunters, and they use it for hunting game. If I was a lawmaker, I would say, okay, you can have an assault rifle if it's strictly for hunting. The moment that assault rifle is used in city limit amongst a populace of the general public and any means outside of defending against a interdimensional extraterrestrial threat to the planet, you are going to get a heavy load of discipline. It needs to be deterred. There's no justification for this. You can't make me understand that at all whatsoever. So my man, his name was Peyton, 18 years old, out in Buffalo, New York. Peyton Gendron, whatever the hell his name is. Domestic terrorist, that's his name is. DT. But Peyton lives out that way, and the story goes he had a plan to carry out, which was to murder as many black people as he possibly could. That is literally his plan. Now, I know there's going to be some people listening to the podcast who's going to sit back and deny that was what his intent was. You're going to try to justify that's the media spinning. My man said himself on numerous posts that is what he was going to do. And Buffalo police, I believe, also found proof and evidence that had he escaped the Tops shooting, he was going to continue down Jefferson Ave, which I believe is the street that the store is on, and commence to shoot more people. My man, it was camouflaged, heavy artillery. From the description of the article that I actually read, not the post, not the heading, not the comment section, but the actual article. My man had everything, quote unquote, planned out. So there's a video, an uncensored video floating around that people are watching, people have seen. I refuse to watch it. I'm part of a generation that hasn't been completely desensitized from one losing their life. Where most people nowadays, once they see something like that, it doesn't faze them. I guess growing up, when I grew up, where I grew up, seeing it on a regular basis, I still have an emotional attachment to how important a human being life is. And I do my best to make sure I cherish the next man and next woman's life, because you only get one. After this, well, no one knows for sure, but there's several different beliefs what happened. But while we're here, this needs to be cherished. And my man didn't do that. He didn't cherish the lives of the people who happened to He didn't cherish the life of people who happened to be shopping at the store as well. And I just think it's an unfortunate situation that happened. So my man literally went after and tried to kill as many people of color as he possibly can. There's a video, allegedly, of him inside the store and saw somebody duck down between the aisles. Once he recognized the person was white, he apologized to the person and kept on moving. At 17 years old, allegedly, he threatened a high school that he goes to, out in, I believe it's Conklin, New York. And so he threatened the school to shoot up people there. And it was reported about having some type of mental illness. And so therefore it was reported, and he was under a day and a half worth of observation. And I guess people just left it at that. They didn't think anything further than that. They didn't look into it any more than that, which I get it. You don't think it's a hoax. I mean, you don't think it's serious. You think it's kind of just one of those, okay, he's just saying this just to be saying this. Okay, we're not going to pay any attention to it. I kind of get the idea. But in today's world, I don't think a lot of people are really taking that kind of stuff as a joke as much as they are as a warning or a heads up. Excuse me, that something's coming. So anyway, after that, they never followed back up on that. They kind of just left it alone. And then 1 year later, apparently he scoped out the store for several hours. He was posted in front of the store in camouflage gear. And the manager asked him to leave, and he did. He once he was asked, he left. And the next day he comes back. And I'm not going to get into details and graphics because I honestly just don't want to. But if any of you guys seen the videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the problem. Now, I know with the Chris Rock thing, kind of just switching topics real quick, the Chris Rock and the Will Smith situation at the award show when Will Smith went up on stage and slapped Chris Rock. A lot of people think that that could have spawned the trend of people feeling the urge or the comfortability of approaching entertainers that are on stage performing and assaulting them. And a lot of people feel that's not the thing. That's not something that's going to happen. That's not a trend. It's all in our heads. It's basically just make believe. Not too soon after that, here comes the Dave Chappelle situation. Okay, we don't know if it started a trend. Some people in today's world, they see somebody doing it, they have to one-up you. So being that you've done this, I got to do this to make a name for myself because everybody has to be on social media. Everybody has to make a name. They have to get 30-second famous. And they feel that's how you do it nowadays. Bravery and courage and creativity and all this other shit. So the world that we live in is different than the world that we live in. The one that's in our mind is completely different than the one that's in our reality. And in some cases, is extremely scary for a lot of people. And I think this would happen with Peyton. I read somewhere in an article that his fear is of people of color taking over and replacing, exterminating. I know that's a very strong word, but pretty much overthrowing the white race. And trust me, I got some friends right now who, once I said that part, they kind of rolling their eyes and taking a breath. I'm like, come on, you're right. Well, that's not how you think. You might not think that way. But why would else somebody want to go to a store and shoot up as many people of color that they possibly can randomly at a store? So with the Chris Rock analogy, or the example I just gave, Buffalo PD has also put out a statement that since the shooting on Sunday, there has been people calling the Tops store and threatening them, and other restaurants, and threatening them. There was one gentleman who was arrested for making domestic terrorist threats to I believe it was a pizzeria, or it may have been a brewery. I think it was a pizzeria. And threatened them about the quality of their food and said that, if they don't shut down, basically, I'm going to come over there and shoot you up just like Tops did the other day. Right? So people are seeing this kind of shit and thinking it's heroic, and it's becoming, someone initiated something. They created this wave of people, whether they take the action or not, to call restaurants and threaten staff. So to some of you, especially in California, Northern California, we may not see that as something ideal. We may take that as somebody who's just doing it just for shits and giggles. But there was a mass shooting in Southern California this past weekend as well, or earlier this week as well. So I believe it was at a church. So for whatever reason, people are getting this notion, and everybody wants to blame somebody. But the main problem, nobody wants to pay attention to. The fear of a lot of these young people, for whatever reason, whether it be the media that they're watching, the conversations that they're having, the disagreements that they're getting into, whatever the case may possibly be, the fear is white supremacy believes it's on the bridge of being extinct. And if people don't think that's an actual thing, I swear to God, you're living under a rock. That's the biggest fear of supremacists, is they see all these POCs in positions and laws changing that at once benefited them. Now the benefit is being spread around to other people. So it seems as if they're wording and reporting things in certain manner to make the scared white folk believe that they are under economic attack, social attack, which is stupid. It's really stupid. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing. If you actually pay attention, you'll notice a trend of everything that's going on right now. So they want to say that this Peyton, whatever the hell his last name is, was having mental illness, a case of mental illness. Listen, that's bullshit. It's not mental illness. It's a card that's, quote unquote, the white man wants to use so they can get away with doing shit that they throw the book at black and brown people for doing as well, on a smaller scale at that. Yes, there's black on black crime. Yes, there's brown on brown crime. Don't tell me there's no white on white crime. And before anybody sits back and says some bullshit, there is no such thing as white on white crime. White folks don't kill white folks for life insurance. Y'all don't kill each other for placements in wills. You guys don't kill yourselves over, I don't know, the justification or for justice of somebody being murdered by police on live television. You guys don't kill other white people because those white people you consider to be race traitors, because they see my life is just as important as yours. Don't give me that bullshit that there is no white on white crime. There is. Heavily. And the reason why black on black crime and brown on brown crime, or black on brown or brown on black, is so pivotal in today's media, news circuits. Predominantly what color people live in poor neighborhoods. Now you get a gamut of everybody live in a poor neighborhood, but majority of the people who live in poor neighborhoods are who? Black and brown. I guarantee you, if you go to South Boston, where there's predominantly Irish, check the crime rate there. I guarantee you that if you go to some city in the South, Alabama, Arkansas, Midwest, check out the crime there compared to the populace of Asian, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, Black, other. What's the murder rate? I guarantee you it's going to be lopsided. But I think a lot of people they refuse to accept it because it goes against their norm of what they've always been told, of what they've always been shown, of what they've always seen is black people. If you put a white person and a black person in the room and you walk them separately, they will get completely different responses instinctively, because over time, people of color have been viewed as animals. We've been viewed as these beasts who are unpredictable, and you can't expect anything. You just never know. You have to exert dominance immediately to let them know. That's how you're viewed. Well, if you treat somebody a certain way, eventually they'll behave that way. And then the person who provokes you to react a certain way that they've been trying to get you to react will then turn around and sit back and say, see, I knew it. I knew he was like that. Look at him. Look at him. But when a white person is put under these same conditions, I'm talking about particularly the fragile white male that the media wants the rest of us to believe with the mental illness. You're telling me that he cannot handle the fact that myself and other people of color are advancing in the world, and that makes him uncomfortable. That should be a realization of how this world still is. Still is. We once had a presidential candidate who had a slogan of "Make America Great Again." And I've always asked these two questions, and these two questions never got answers. When was America great to begin with? In order for it to be great again, it had to be great originally. So when was America great to begin with? Second, great again for who? And if you look at history in the United States of America, America was great when white men had the control. Not black, not brown. Hell, white women had no say. America was great when white men called the shots. Remember, this is during a time where a white female, you were nothing but Polly homemaker, dinner at 5, kids clothes and bathe and house clean. But the moment you had a problem, every male in every profession would look at you as if you were delusional. You don't know what you're talking about. You're over exaggerating. This is all of your hair. Here, take some medication. So most of the housewives were either amped on coffee in the morning or doped up on pills by the evening so they can cope with their miserable lives that nobody wanted to deal with. Well, the white woman was right above the black man, who was right above the black woman, who was equivalent to the Latin man and the Latin woman. But if you were Jewish, you got a little bit extra leeway because, well, we'll look past the Jewish part of you and kind of pay a little bit more attention to the complexity part of you. Now, that's not saying that Jewish people had it easier, but in many, many cases, it wasn't as difficult, because look at today. Look at today. So when you see somebody who has a problem with people of color finally getting out of their struggle, and that fucks with their head, you can't tell me that doesn't, especially when, again, government institutions are doing things that label mental illness. So you get the sympathy of America. I don't buy that mental illness shit, because of all the years of me being on this planet Earth, I have never seen a group of black people. I've never seen an individual black person. If it happens, show me, please. I have never seen anybody leave the hood and drive to El Dorado Hills, drive to Piedmont, drive to the Presidio, drive to South San Jose, I've never seen anybody drive to Stockton on the I-5 side in a gated community. I've never seen anyone drive to Folsom. I've never seen them drive to Auburn. I've never seen anybody go to Palomers Hills to Beverly Hills and shoot up a neighborhood. Never. But I have known of people to leave those areas and go to the poor neighborhoods and vandalize and loot and terrorize, while the people who live there gets the label of looters and vandalism, while they drive back on Highway 50 with free shit. I have seen that. You see what I'm saying? I have been followed on streets and highways going into neighborhoods that I predominantly don't look like I belong there. I don't fit the description of anything, but of course, you can never prove that point. You don't see me grabbing pistols and going to Fair Oaks and shooting anybody up in those neighborhoods. So this mental illness, it is a sickness. It's supremacy. It's these people who feel, because they've been taught, they've been raised, they've been programmed. If you're white, you're right. Anybody that even remotely thinks they're better than you, something's wrong with them, because you have the keys to the kingdom. I have white friends who do not think this way, and they do not understand their white counterparts who do think that way. Those people are considered to be race traitors by supremacists, because they look at the situation as if, why are you friends with this coon? Look, if you really want to get ahead of life, come over here. Come be with us. We can create this and have this and solely for us, because to them we are leeches. To them we are just trying to suck them dry. Hence the stereotype about people of color being on government assistance, because we're leeches. Not to mention that the government assistance that we're receiving is money that we've already paid for in taxes that come out of our paycheck anyway. So it's kind of your own money, but that's different. Neglect that, because they want to keep us ignorant. I said this in the previous podcast. I'm from Oakland, California. I know everything about the pimp game. I know enough about the pimp game. I know that a pimp, one of his biggest fears is to have a smart hoe. Because if that hoe knows how to sponsor herself, she don't need that pimp no more. His job is to keep her stupid. So all he has to do is point and she go and return with what it is that he wants. The government is the biggest pimp on this planet. And they have a country full of hoes. And the very few who learn how to get out the system, they try to give us tools to keep us pacified so we don't share the secret. Remember, they come to the hood and take what the hood has, commercialize that, and make money off of it. Yet they refuse to let the hood come to the hills and teach the hood the secrets of trade of how to get out of it. Because we are cogs in the machine that they have to maintain, that constantly work. That's supremacy. And if you want to be part of that fraternity or that sorority, you have to play by those rules. And if you refuse to play by those rules, well, then you can't be in the game. Again, I believe it was episode 6 where I talked about rap music and how it's encouraging, but you don't hear that on television, because a lot of the musicians who play conscious music and it has a message, record labels aren't fucking with them. Record labels don't have them signed. They have to become independent. They have to do their own distributing. They have to do their own recordings. They have to do their own promoting. They have to do their own advertising. Why? Because the labels don't want us to hear anything conscious. There was a video where, as long as rappers are talking about killing other rappers, it's entertaining. But I believe it was Rick Ross some time ago had a verse in one of his songs about date rape. Well, he got silenced. And I believe I don't know if he was dropped from his label or not, but a lot of people, his sales hurt because now you're talking about an element that we don't approve of. Don't talk about hurting women, but if you want to talk about killing other black people, we're okay with that. And even the labels will support that. Why? You think they really give a damn about what we did? That's supremacy. That's why record labels like Death Row Records was so popular. That's why record labels like Cash Money Records and No Limit Records were so powerful, because they were black owned. But the moment it changed and they were able to, corporate America was able to get involved with it, those companies fell by the wayside. That's why it's so important for people to develop their own. But you have to keep in mind there's a system in place that does not want you to come from underneath their thumb. This is all an illusion. That's why they call it the American dream, according to the late George Carlin. Because if you wake up from it, you realize that you're fucked. So they rather keep you asleep and pursuing something that isn't real. But the moment you unplug from the matrix, it's a very, very scary reality that you truly live in. But that's supremacy. I'm going to have you looking for this while we're living like this. This 18-year-old kid in Buffalo believes that people of color are the cancer to the society. And if there's anybody listening to this podcast that's not in their head like you are, I want you to look at the influence that the black culture has had on your life. What are you wearing? What are you driving? What's your hairstyle? Do you tan? What kind of shoes are you wearing? Who are you associated with? I want you to look at what the Mexican culture has done for you. If they're a bunch of rapists, and what has the Mexican culture done for this country? Again, these people who live here, they didn't cross the border. Motherfucker, the border crossed them. If it wasn't for the Mexican culture to keep this land preserved, we wouldn't have the beauty that we do. So this is not a anti-white episode of my podcast. This is an anti-white supremacist episode on my podcast. There's a Republican representative out of Wyoming. Her name is Liz Cheney. And she made the comments about how Republicans need to step their game up because they're enabling white supremacy. Now, this is a fellow Republican who is saying this, a conservative who is saying this, that her fellow political partners, they are aiding in with this supremacy belief by allowing this kind of thing and these kind of thoughts to prevail in the country. And we need to do better. And I kind of applaud her for that because of that reason. Traditionally, if you ever had a conversation with most, not all, but with most conservatives, a lot of their beliefs are not supremacist-like. Well, they're not supremacists, but they have a lot of things aligned with supremacy if you ever have a conversation with them. And so one of the fears that this Peyton cat has is a theory that's called the Great Replacement Theory, which is what I said earlier. And it's a thing, the Great Replacement Theory. And I'll read it from the article itself. It says, the claim aligns with the Great Replacement Theory, which draws heavy notice in a racist document linked to the accused Buffalo shooter and suggests that white Americans are being systematically replaced by people of color. I don't understand how This is a rhetorical statement. I don't understand how people who have been in charge of a system for over 400 years is now having this fear that they're being replaced within the last 20 to 30. That right there should tell you everything you need to know about the system that's in place in this country. If for the past 4 centuries, something has been a certain way between this color and these colors, and then all of a sudden, in the last 30 years, for example, I'm sure it's been longer, 50 years, the last 5 decades, you see people of color and women start to take position, and that scares you. I don't know about you, but that usually tells me it's a one-sided type of business. That if that is your biggest fear, your system had a flaw to begin with, and you were just hoping that no one would notice. The country is controlled, ultimately, older white men who are out of touch with the rest of the world. And with that said, anything that's current and modern that gets presented to them, it scares them because they do not see where they fit anymore. And it's not that you're being replaced, it's everyone else is being included. You still have a place. It just, you no longer have a place on the top of the food chain. You're now in the mix with the rest of the jungle. And they don't like that. Because as long as they have the upper hand, now the game is fair. But the moment that they're on equal level ground, they have a disadvantage. That should speak volumes about the system. Yes, anyone who creates something should have the upper hand on how it works, but not necessarily when you are dividing cultures, incarcerating cultures, starving cultures, arresting cultures, killing other cultures. And then when those cultures that you are trying your damnedest to suppress evolve and begin to rise above, you now have to come out and start killing people to stop that from happening. That is a mental illness. So I will say they are right, but they're using it in a wrong sense. The mental illness isn't somebody who's sick with this disease. The mental illness is somebody who's sick with the disease of believing I'm better than you. And the moment you show otherwise, I have to kill you. It's like Cat Williams made a joke about the person falling into the tiger cage. We got to kill the tiger for going tiger. It's interesting. I wonder what's going to happen when POCs get that leg up and actually are equivalent on everything across the board. Right? It's like old school Big Mama when she would make something to eat. Didn't take much, didn't have much, but whatever little she had in that kitchen, boy, she made a miracle. Give that woman a full-blown kitchen with seasons, herbs, spices, dairy, and everything else to make a restaurant's type of meal, you're going to be blown away. It is amazing how many people come from nothing and can make something. But when you take someone who has everything and they subtract something, they feel they're losing everything. I don't understand the psychological level to that, because all you have to do is take your own advice, right? Your advice for people of color is to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and work hard and keep your head down. A lot of these people who say that shit come from families who inherited wealth. So they don't know anything about when it comes down to having to work hard. You just got to work hard enough to maintain. Dr. Martin Luther King had an interview where he says, this is Dr. Martin Luther King himself, Black people are the only people who are important to this country. No other race can say that. So when people tell Black people, go back to where you come from, bitch, you brought us here. Why don't you send us back that one-way ticket the way you brought us back here? You paid for the trip here, you should pay for the trip home. But a lot of everything that the media spins is usually biased. I will give you that. But you also have to kind of go behind the words. And the problem with our society today, in my opinion, is we no longer know how to think for ourselves. And we take whatever they tell us at face value and we run with that. And if somebody has a conversation that's different than what is normally being spoken about, you're crazy. You're off. Something's wrong with you. That's not what this says. The truth sometimes is behind the words, right? It's kind of like when you're dating somebody and you ask your girl, like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, I'm fine. You know, goddamn well she ain't fine. Something's wrong. Something's going on, right? You know this. Behind the words are the meaning. And it's usually, again, not to pick on women, but usually a woman would sit back and say communication is key and we need to communicate more. So when you want to communicate, she doesn't want to talk about it. Okay. So it's not what you say, it's the actions that you take, right? Fellas, hey man, you okay? No, I'm good. You know by the tone, he ain't good. I gave those examples because when the media says something, you also have to be aware of what else are they not saying? What else are they leaving out? What else is being omitted from this? What are they not telling me? So you might have to ask questions. I'm somewhat of a conspiracy theorist person. I'm not like far range like, what's my man's name? Alex. God, I can't think of his name. I don't think like him, nowhere near that. But I do ask questions. And it necessarily doesn't mean that I believe the questions that I'm asking. What it is I just want to know the different possibilities. So that way when something comes up, okay, cool, I thought about that option too. And I want to always ask questions about everything. And a lot of people who don't have answers hate questions because you make them realize how much that they don't know. In most cases, they know just as much as you do. This is just what they're being told to type, told to write, told to say. So make sure you question what you're reading, not in a sense that it's fake or bullshit, but okay, what's the other side of this? Or as the saying used to go, flip the script. What's the other side to this? There's a pro, okay, what's the con? It's the con, okay, what's the pro? Sometimes you have to inform yourself of what's going on in order for you to know what's really going on. Because if everyone's telling you the same thing, it doesn't necessarily make it true. It doesn't necessarily make it false either. With this situation right here, mental illness, no. My man was mentally developed to purchase the guns. He was mentally developed to get the guns. He was mentally developed to have a plan. He was mentally developed to plan out this plan. He was mentally developed to scope and recon. He was mentally developed to make the conscious decision to go through. He was mentally developed. Had he escaped this, where else he was going to go? He was mentally developed to be extremely methodical with what he was going to do on Sunday. And by the way, he's alive. He's in custody. He's alive. I wonder what the outcome would have been if you guys already know what I'm about to say. Just curious. I would like to know what some of my pro-gun conservative friends has to say. This is a safe space. It's a conversation space. So tell me, do you think that he did nothing wrong? Do you feel that guns should be regulated? Do you feel that it should be more of an educational thing? Do you feel that he should be disciplined? Because I've noticed a lot of my friends who are pro-gun have been extremely quiet on this topic. Extremely quiet on this topic. And I'm not trying to provoke or antagonize. I want to make sure that's clear. What I am trying to do is get a dialogue with you to understand what is your viewpoint on this. How do you see this situation? What is your take on this? Because personally for me, my take is this. It's going to brew a whole lot of racial division in this country, even more that this kid was taken in custody with assault rifles. Thank you much for your time on the E.I.T.H.R podcast. You can follow me again on the social media of Twitter and Instagram at IG at E.I.T.H.R. You guys be well. Have a good one.
Hello, my name is Candace Romero, and it has been my absolute privilege and honor to be teaching people about doTERRA's essential oils for the last 9 years and helping people live their most vibrant life. If you'd like to learn more about my natural solutions, please feel free to contact me on Facebook at Bay Area Terra Tribe Essential Oils and Natural Solutions, or check out my website, my.doterra.com/Romero. That's my.doterra.com/ROMERO. Thank you.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D. Cal.